The core idea for this show was actually a picture, and it was, I just saw it. I was flipping through a magazine, and it was a bunch of girls leaning over a 5-bar gate, and they were just ordinary Aussie girls, and blue sky, great big hats that shadowed their faces, and all you saw were these great big white grins. And it was such an arresting image, just a bunch of ordinary girls with big hats and big grins. And seriously, I thought, women running a cattle station. And it was as simple as that.
She mulled on it, and it became the kernel of the idea for the telly movie, which is we made a pilot movie in 95, 96.
The other person who was absolutely key to the early development was Caroline Stanton. Caroline Stanton is currently the script and story producer on Blue Heelers. Now, Caroline came on board and we developed it together after I'd had the original idea. She's one of the best storytellers in Australia. I've been very fortunate because Caroline and I developed the movie together, and then we shot it in Adelaide over Christmas 95 to 96. When it premiered on 9, Mother's Day to 1996, it just went through the roof. It went through the roof, and it remains, to my knowledge, the highest rating Australian telly movie of all time. I don't think anybody's beaten us. But the network was still scared to death. I think they did not believe that a female drama would sustain audience interest. A hurdle also was convincing people we could shoot this series 100% on location. And I swear to you, even though I sounded very confident, I was scared to death. Because when you're doing this amount of stuff and you're doing major stunts and you've got horses and you've got weather and you've got 4 seasons in one day and you've either got extreme heat or extreme cold, it was a big gamble to see if we could deliver this. I needed to find a location that was in reach of a major city, and that was truly country. And that's getting pretty hard to do, impossible to do out of Sydney and Melbourne. You can look at doing it in Queensland, but I didn't know Queensland well, and I knew South Australia. So when we started looking for locations for the movie, a wonderful man called Gus Howard gave us a couple of weeks of his time. Now, Gus is actually now the executive producer of Blue Heelers, but he'd worked for a long time in South Australia. He happened to be back there over Christmas or something, and he didn't have anything to do, so he very kindly just did a bit of advanced scouting for us, and he knew about this place. It was on a government farm in those days, the homestead, and it was empty, because they didn't need it. They just wanted the land that was around it. So it was a gift from God. We could move our production in there and we could treat it like a backlot, and that's what we do today.
The real name's Kingsford. It was built in 1856, and it's been by a man called King, who crossed a ford to get to it. He was held up by bushrangers and held captive for 2 or 3 days, and they were hanged for that offence. It's down in a little hollow, which is really hard to film. It's hard to shoot it, but it gives us privacy. We're surprisingly close to a main road. We found it because it was found it by accident. It used to be, for a long time, it was owned by a government research farm called Turretfield, South Australian government place, and they wanted to sell it because they wanted the land around it for crop development and so on. So they split off a few paddocks and put it up for sale, and we were able to get the Nine Network to buy it.
We treat that piece of land very much as a working farm, and the actors do stuff. So that means that not only do they have to learn their lines, hit their marks, but they have to do it with animals. Casting is one of those enormously subjective things, and it was a really long and exhaustive casting process. I think we saw something like 400 actresses before we found Bridie and Lisa. Sonia Todd, I knew from the very beginning that I was just passionate to have Sonia on board. I just knew she'd be wonderful for Meg. It took us a long time to find Rachel. I think we saw just about every wonderful young actress in Australia. But then when I saw Rachel Kapani and Sonia Todd together, working together, I knew that they were the ones. And Jessica. I think they're all stars. And Jessica deciding she wanted to join us, Jessica Napier, to play Becky. Such an ensemble. When we saw them together, chills down the spine. I was getting very depressed about finding Alex and Nick, because I knew we had to find real leading men, because they had to be such powerful actors to hold their place on the screen with 5 women. My God, you know, they had to really have it. And again, there were many possibles. But boy, oh boy, when Aaron walked through the room, now I don't know if you've seen Aaron in the flesh. People call Aaron, and I think he'll forgive me for saying this, the human forklift. He's enormous. He makes Lisa look tiny. And Lisa is, you know, she's a tall girl. She's 5'10" in old money, and he's 6'5" in old money, you know. And Miles is 6'4", and it was a joke for a while. Everybody had to be, like, you couldn't cast men on McLeods unless they were like 6'4", and it just kept happening.
This show is really what cuts everyone down to size. As soon as they get on set, you know, they have to be able to get on a horse, look natural, drive a tractor, leap off a tractor, turn it on and off, use a tipper, use all sorts of things. Basically, we have a whole team of wranglers, vehicle specialists, art department people to help them. And the trick, I guess, is to make it all look as natural as possible.
Training was really enormous for each one of our cast. Every single one of them is a city girl.
It was like being thrown in the deep end. I lived in the country. I worked 7 days a week on riding, shearing, lassoing animals, bit of mustering. I just worked every weekend just trying to catch up because I had no experience of this whatsoever. And we have the most amazing animal wrangling team, and they've taught us to ride, they've taught me to shear, they've taught me to do everything that I do in the show, and without them I couldn't have done it.
I ride a little bit as a kid, and I think when I auditioned I said, yeah, I can ride, and as you do. And when we were first taught to ride, I realised I had no idea, and I had to learn from scratch. But I guess with me, I was lucky I didn't have any fear about it, which I think as an adult learning again, sometimes you can. And I have a great passion for riding. I think horses are amazing creatures, and it's one thing I feel really lucky about, and it's one of my greatest pleasures of the job, is riding.
I love animals, and to be around animals every day is just an absolute joy.
We've got 50 cattle and 14 horses, and whatever sheep we buy and sell sheep. We've got a team of 4 blokes who live there. We've built accommodation that's cunningly hidden behind the shearing shed. And they look after it, because the animals have to be fed and watered and so on. If there's not enough, they can be hand fed if there isn't enough natural feed on the ground.
We stagger to set at about 6 o'clock in the morning for breakfast. Then the actors are coated in mud, sweat, dust to look as if they've been working in paddocks. And, you know, one of the great things I have to say about this show is that it doesn't try to look like a fashion plate. I mean, what's great is that the makeup people are experts at caking on the crap onto the actors, because that is what looks real about being in the country. And then we do that for 5 hours. Then we relax for lunch and continue again pretty much until the sun goes down, or sometimes chasing the sun until the end. So it's 10 hours is our standard shooting day, and then we have a 3/4 an hour lunch, and that's about it. By which time, doing that 5 days a week, it's a really tiring show to make. You know, and I think, if anyone says it's easy, they're kidding.
We do the equivalent of a feature film every 11 days. We shoot 10 minutes a day, and we shoot it like a feature film. And that was the brief at the beginning. I said to them, I'm going to kill you all unless this damn thing looks like a feature film. I mean that. I'll come after you.
Our locations are sometimes all around Adelaide, not just north of Adelaide, but sometimes south. Special locations can be very far afield. And the great thing about shooting in South Australia is it has such a range of locations. I mean, we're set on the plains of Gawler, but sometimes we need cliffs, sometimes we need the sea. I mean, it's a remarkable spot, you know, in terms of closeness of driving to get to a good location. It's
about 6 days an episode. The director goes off with a separate camera and does some shots where he needs a smaller number of cast. We shoot 2 episodes together as a block of 2 over 12 days.
McLeod's is shot with a really big unit. I mean, it's probably bigger than most feature units. It's, you know, we say that when we go into town, it's the circus coming to town. Multiple trucks, semi-trailers. The grips truck is the size of a huge Pantec. I mean, each time you move, you have to consider it really carefully because it takes so long. So, I mean, what the first assistant director does, and why they're so important to this show, is that they plan each day's shoot, and you try and minimise the number of moves. It's a military undertaking, basically, and the trick is to make every day look natural while you're actually behaving like an army.
It's a very harmonious shoot, and that is not bullshit. That's really true. I've worked on lots of shoots, and practically every director who comes and works on McLeod's loves the experience because it's very family.